Welcome to the Rugby League Outsiders prediction video. This is the only prediction video on the internet that counts, in our opinion. My name's Craig.
And my name's Karl. Mouth-watering wins for Leeds Rhinos and Leigh Leopards.
Okay, Karl, let's get into it then. We need to kick off, as we always do, a cracking round 17 in the Super League. So let's do our rapid-fire recap, kicking off with Castleford versus Huddersfield Giants.
Tigers 12, Giants 30. Below par performance for Castleford Tigers. Giants took full advantage of it and came out on top.
Next game, moving on to the Friday, then we had Leigh Leopards taking on Wigan.
Leopards 18, Warriors 8, the bus stop derby. What a game this was. This had everything you want as a Super League fan. High intensity game, massive crowd, and it went right down to the wire. Great game.
Next game then, Salford took on Warrington.
Red Devils 12, Warrington Wolves 24. I think you've got to say the Wolves use their get out of jail free card on this occasion. Really close game, just had enough to beat Salford though.
Hull FC continue their losing streak at home. They took on Saints.
Hull FC 6, Saints 13. The search for a home win continues for Hull FC. Saints starting to build some consistency now. That's 5 out of the last 6 for Saints.
Next up, Wakefield Trinity took on Catalan Dragons.
Trinity 44, Dragons 6. Trinity took the Dragons to the cleaners. A high-intensity game from Trinity. Just had absolutely everything. Dragons just couldn't handle it.
Final game of the round, maybe the best game of the round. Sunday, Hull KR took on Leeds Rhinos.
Maybe the best game of the round. Robins 8, Rhinos 14. Thought we'd seen it all with the Leigh and Wigan game at the start of the week. This game had just as much. A really close first half, and then the Rhinos found a second gear and managed to put an 80-minute performance together to beat the Robins.
Brilliant. Okay, round 17. Sum it up in one word, Karl.
1 million.
A million, all right. Let's put a bit of context around there. So in our news show, a couple of things happened. First of all, there's been a cumulative 1 million viewers of both on-screen and in-person games, this year. So that is a massive number of people that are taken in Super League, Rugby League. No, Super League, isn't it?
Super League, yeah.
And also this channel has reached 1 million views as well, which is just. It's just incredible. So I want to thank everybody that's watched any of our videos on YouTube, and please continue to do so. Right, Karl, let's get into round 18 then. A couple of really important games here that we've kind of identified. Let's kick off on Thursday night. This is on Sky Sports Action, 8 o'clock. Hull FC at home taking on Wakefield Trinity. Hull FC currently sitting 7th in the table, Wakey in 6th. Hull FC 3 from the last 6, and Wakey also 3 wins from the last 6 games.
If you're Hull FC, you want to be playing away, don't you?
They do.
What's that, over 12 months now, they're still searching for a home win. Just incredible that they can't get a win at home, because look, Hull FC at the weekend, they were good in patches, and then whenever they managed to build up any pressure, they just let the cap off, and there was times where they'd get a repeat set of 6 in the opponent's 20, and it was like, right, this is where they're gonna finally break the deadlock. They're gonna score here. They're building some pressure. Then they'd go drop it on the first tackle, or there'd be an incorrect play of the ball, so every time they got themselves into a decent situation, they just let Saints off the hook. The Old Faithful got behind them and managed to spur them on, but it still wasn't enough.
Well, it weren't enough, and they were actually like played out the game with that drop goal at the end of the game, weren't they? Because there was a bit of excitement where you thought maybe they can get into it, and as a clock ticked down, you thought maybe they'll do it. They didn't, you know what I mean? And it just continues their run of poor form at home. And if I were to describe Hull FC at home right now, I'd describe them as stagnant. Let's flip across to Wakefield Trinity. And how would you describe their performances at the minute?
I mean, yeah, their performances just get better and better, don't they? And they were incredible at the weekend. I've got to mention Josh Rourke. I think for a player who's not quite had a starting place in that side this year, just because of how well they've been playing. He had a great season last year at London. He came into Wakefield this year, didn't quite fire straight away. This weekend, he was excellent. I think he was a game changer for Wakefield this week.
Yeah, against a competition that you wouldn't expect that. If you looked at this at the start of the season, you go, right, Wakey are going to batter Catalans 44 points to 6. Like you couldn't predict that. Well, I wouldn't
Not
predict
at the
that.
Start of the season, no.
You know, obviously lots of Wakey fans perhaps would.
You're getting yourself in hot water again here.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have predicted that. And I think lots of the neutrals or other fans wouldn't have predicted that either. But it happened, you know, in quality style. And I'll echo what you're saying there about Josh Rourke. You know, obviously, we followed him at depth last year when he was at London. He was given a chance down there, you know, at London, based on his performance there. And didn't he spend a few weeks on the sideline as well? You know, he managed to do enough to get an opportunity at Wakey. He's grabbed that with both hands and performing incredibly well. You know, in a team where lots of players have stood up. Lots of players are doing, you know, big minutes, good stuff, at pace, with skill. It's just brilliant.
It's Wakefield's like depth that's standing there in good stead this year, because the Wakefield have had periods of this season where they've actually had huge, what you would say, their first teamers on the sideline through injury. But yet the players that have come through, who were sort of, you would say, your second string players, that's a bit offensive, but they've performed at such a high level as the players who have got injured. And I think Darryl Powell's now really got a bit of a headache as players start to come back from injury. It's like they're all performing well. So and the thing with, I think you said at the start, are they both 3 from 6 in the last games? Yes, both 3 from 6. But you would say that even the games that Trinity have lost, they haven't been that far off, have they? So it's going to be a good game. This is, but I think Wakefield are probably going to take it against Hull FC this week.
So you're going to Wakey win?
Yeah, I'm going for an away win.
Do you know? I mean, you've got to be brave to think, you know, go against the grain and say Hull FC are going to win this at home, just because, like you said, they just don't seem to have the ability to do that this year.
I tell you what, though, got to shout out the Old Faithful. They just continually keep backing their side, don't they? Like they were at Saints. There were times in that game where they were just making silly errors, but the crowd got behind them, and it just really pushed them on to the point where it was like, actually, we've got the crowd behind us, momentum's back with us. Maybe we can pinch it against Saints, but you just want to be. But yeah, the Old Faithful are massive for Hull FC.
Do you think this is a crunch game for both teams? Do you think if whoever wins this is going to go on and maybe keep hold of that final playoff spot, and the other team is going to start falling down the table, or what?
Certainly, it's a big one, isn't it, this? Yeah, I'm going for a Wakefield win. They're going to keep that spot, and I think if Wakefield win this week, we won't see them drop out of the playoff race.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I'm going to Wakefield win, although I don't like the idea of Hull FC not being able to win at home. But I've got to say, you know, I think Hull FC are reaping the rewards of a great start to the season. You know what I mean? And they're kind of almost on their way down. But Wakey, you know, are performing really well. Whereas I'd call Hull FC stagnant at home. You know, I'd see Wakey's.
They have played quite a lot of games away, though, aren't they? Yeah. So I think that record, and what I think you said to me earlier, they've got 6 or 7 home games coming up in the next 13. Is it something like that? So
I think it's more. I think it's 8 games at home in the next 13 games.
Right. So they've got to really use this now to start pushing on at home, haven't they?
Yeah, but it's a must-watch game. We're both going at Wakey there. It's going to be a really exciting game on Sky proper, not your bloody
come on
dog shit.
Come on,
leave it.
Leave it out.
Right, move on to the Friday then. Friday the 11th, and the first game we're going to look at is Leeds Rhinos taking on Saints. Kicks off at 8 o'clock on Sky Sports Action. Leeds currently 5 from the last 6, including a win over top of the shop Hull KR last week. And then Saints also 5 from the last 6, picking up a win this weekend as well. So Leeds currently sitting 3rd in the table and Saints sitting 5th.
Most exciting game of the round for me, this? How are you calling it? No, we've got Leigh, Hull KR. That'll be a good one. But yeah, Leeds.
Let me just follow on from that statement. I don't think this is the most intriguing game of the round. More on that in a bit.
Right, okay. Well, I find this a really intriguing game. What we saw from Leeds this week, we've seen glimpses of Leeds all season. It was like, maybe they are a top 3, top 4 side. They've certainly cemented themselves up there now, aren't they? And we've been saying, are they a top 2 side, though? Have this Leeds side got what it takes to actually push on for a grand final place this year? And I think all season I've been quite, not really. I've kind of thought Wigan, Hull KR, they're the 2 teams. But then this week I saw full performance from Leeds. And I think that's something that Brad Arthur's wanted all season, is an 80-minute performance, and they delivered it this week against Hull KR.
Yeah, they did, and he's put it down to their pre-season. Now, when you look at this team and compare it to last season, this time last season, the Leeds side, there's not a massive change of personalities. It's not like they've had a complete clear all decks,
nope.
New personalities in. Something else has gone on. Brad Arthur's putting it down to the pre-season, and he's renowned by all accounts to have, a real tough pre-season campaign,
yeah.
To be like blood boiling in intensity.
I've seen the spirit of the Rhino when he first came in as a coach. He was like a bit nicey for about 2 weeks, and then basically said, "You wait till pre-season comes around."
That's what he said.
Pretty much, yeah. And Brodie Crawford in changing rooms, he went. Yeah, I've heard about his pre-seasons. I'm not looking forward to it. So anyway, yeah, but
they're reaping the rewards.
They are. They are.
My point is, there's not a massive change of personality. There are some key. Lockie Miller, just brings a different aspect to Leeds, something that was kind of missing last year. So they're both 5 from 6. These teams, but again, Leeds are performing really well in my mind. Saints blowing hot and cold. They really are.
Yeah, just going back to Leeds, how good was that final try this week? For Miller to start that play off in his own, how far back were they? In their own 20 or something like that? And then to back up all the way and end up taking the final pass, just thought it was incredible. He just, box office try for me, probably... Try of the season, do you think? Certainly up there, top 5, isn't it? I'm trying to think back of some of the other tries this year, but...
Well, we've had some incredible solo efforts, but in terms of like a team performance, mind you, I've had some great tries as well. I'm thinking back to a recent Wakefield try, but I mean, it definitely stood out, didn't it? And you when you look at it and you see the amount of replays that it's getting online, on social media and stuff like that, like... It's obviously class because it's getting that much exposure. What I love about it is just players hitting the ball in support at pace, and like you said, Lockie Miller, 3 involvements in that play to then go on and score the try. I think this is what Brad Arthur's talking about. Without the fitness, Jake Connor spoke about it as well towards, in his after-match speech as well, is that without that fitness he couldn't put himself in that place. He wouldn't put himself in the place in that spot in the past, but he is now under Brad Arthur. So great stuff going on there.
Before we go on to Saints, Jake Connor's interview with Sky after it, what did you make of that? Obviously he's been pressed on the fact that
he's been pressed.
He's top of the Man of Steel rankings, but he hasn't been picked for England.
First thing I will say is that I thought Jake Connor handled himself incredibly well. I personally think that Brian Carney is well within his rights to ask that question, but ask it once, not 4 or 5 different times from different angles, basically trying to get what they call a soundbite, from Jake to drop him in the shit, and thereby definitely counting him out of any England. He could have gone there and slagged off Sean Wayne, you know what I mean, and he'd never pull on an England or Great Britain in the future, perhaps, shirt again. But he held himself, to a great standard. It was obvious when he was saying, I don't know what to say. I don't know what I can say about that. I don't know what to say. Clearly, he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. You know, he's got his opinions, and obviously he wants to be involved and understands that the wrong comment now, you know, will scupper the whole of that. To be pressed as much as he was pressed, I thought it was bad form. I thought it was bad form by Brian Carney, and I even think that Danny Maguire, who stood next to him, felt uncomfortable with the questioning as well. And I just didn't think it was particularly good. What were your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to hear what he wanted to say. Yeah, I think I agree with you there. I think it probably went on a little bit too long. But yeah, I'm glad that they asked the question, because it's nice to know what the players are thinking in situations, especially when there's so many fans turning around and saying, actually, Jake Connor deserves this. Well, just a training squad for a start, isn't it? I'm going back to the same thing I said last week, especially when we've got injured players picked in the training squad, and then we've got a player that's top of the man in the steel rankings, and it's not even been given a slot. But anyway, we're going on. Right, let's go on to Saints. How do you think Saints played at the weekend?
I thought there were some good performances from some of the key. I mean, Morgan Knowles had a great game. I thought not Wendell Saylor, but Tristan Saylor. You know, he's always interjecting and bringing stuff. I thought Lomax was off his game. He's been off his game for a while, and I didn't see anything.
Funny you mention that. I didn't think Lomax was too bad this week.
Yeah, but it was just sloppy. There's been like a couple of levels off Saints' skill for a while, from what I've seen. The likes of, you know, some of the senior players like Alex Walmsley dropping balls, you know, in the first carry and stuff. This is just something I've noticed throughout the season. And Lomax, you know, some of the kicking weren't great, the passes weren't great. It almost feels like they're just a couple of notches on the dial off where you expect them to be.
I think that's probably a fair assessment. However, the thing what I would say with Saints is they completed their sets of six a lot better than Hull did this week. And actually, they had a lot more possession, and they had a lot more possession because they just went through the motions, and the completion rate was higher than Hull FC's. I think you could argue it two ways, couldn't you? Were Hull FC just really sloppy and they just coughed the ball up a little bit too easy? Possibly, but at the same time, you've still got to put a strong defensive performance in. I thought Saints were okay. It's hard to judge Saints at the minute. I find it really because they play some of the teams mid-table to the lower end, and sometimes they can look great, and then they come up against other sides and they're a bit. They're hot and cold out there. I think is probably the best way to put them. I say that though, they've still picked up 5 wins from 6.
No, I don't class them as hot and cold. I think they're just warm. I don't think they have outstanding performances and particularly poor performances. I think they're a mid-table side at the minute, and they're held up at the minute. So they're in 5th place at the minute, but they're held up there by 6 easy points from Salford. You know, in reality, I know this is a discussion point. Lots of people are commenting on, and
they are. But then they did beat. We just sung Leeds' praises a minute ago. They did beat Leeds only a few weeks back.
No, but I would class Leeds as being hot and cold. That's the difference.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Leeds can pull out a stellar performance like they did this weekend against Hull KR. They can play a full game of 80 minutes. But then there's other times they go to sleep at half-time. You know?
True.
So I class Saints, and I know there's lots of Saints fans out there that disagree, as there always is, when we're talking about opposing teams and stuff like that. But they haven't really set the world alight for me this year. Likewise, they haven't been terrible. They've just been that mid-table team, which is a shame because it's star-studded.
No, but they have got themselves into that place now where they are a mid-table team. They're in the playoffs. And if they do start getting some, consistencies, they've been bloody winning. They could really push on if they start getting their shit together. I don't know, though, this week against Leeds. I think, from what I've seen of the two sides recently, I think Leeds are probably going to win this one.
Yeah, I think it's a Leeds win. I don't think you'll get much difference in Saints. I don't think they're going to be incredibly inspired or have a particularly bad game. But I just think they're going to be that warm team. And I think Leeds are riding a bit of a high now, so I think it's a Leeds win.
Right. Both agree then?
Yep.
This ain't right fun, is it?
No, not at the minute. Right, let's move on to this game then. Second place Wigan taking on 11th place Huddersfield Giants. This kicks off at 3 o'clock on Sky Plus. Wigan currently 4 from the last 6 games, and Huddersfield 2 from the last 6 games. So on paper, you would argue that this has got to be an easy win for Wigan.
You would, but then, what was it, 2-3 weeks ago? Wigan played Giants and Giants took them all the way, and actually you could argue that Giants should have won that game. It went down to literally the last second, didn't it? This is different though. It's not at a small, compact, boutique stadium like Dewsbury, like it was a few weeks ago. It's at the DW.
Boutique? I don't think Dewsbury's ever been called boutique.
That's what boutique stadium. It's like small, compact. It was at Dewsbury, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't at Batley? Yeah, it was at Dewsbury. Different kettle of fish in it going to Wigan. Wigan, obviously they lost this weekend to Hull. They have taken a dip, haven't they? Wigan.
They lost to Leigh.
Sorry, they lost to Leigh.
Yeah.
Wigan have definitely taken a dip, haven't they? The performances aren't what we expect from Wigan, and that inconsistency is starting to creep in. They've probably had 4 games now where they're not the Wigan of old. But however, when you're going up against Huddersfield, I think this could be one-way traffic.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. I think it'll be a spirited effort from Huddersfield. I think they'll stay in the game until half-time, and then Wigan's superior squad depth and fitness will take its toll, and I think it's going to be a Wigan win. Interesting that Matty Pete said, he sort of suggested, or I've seen reported, that one of his comments was, well, maybe we're just not as good as what people think. What's your take on that?
I think he's playing mind games with everybody, he's Matty Pete. I think he's a clever bloke. He don't mind giving a soundbite to the press because he knows that internally they're just going to deal with their own stuff. Yeah, I think Matty Pete's a clever bloke, to be honest with you. I won't buy into any of that. We have got to say though, Wigan, they're not quite the same team without Bevan French.
No, they're not, and we have this same discussion every week.
Every time Bevan French is injured, we have this conversation, don't we?
Yeah. However, Faramond, class act.
Yeah, he is.
Absolute class act, and no suggestion that they're going to be resting him because he's a youngster as well. I mean, he's just brilliant to have on the pitch, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, the game against Leigh was one of the best Super League games we've had this year. Actually, Wigan and Leigh have served that up twice now, haven't they? And Leigh came out on top and they won that game, but Wigan, they weren't far off, were they? I mean, there was nothing in it. And Faramond is playing, he's having a great season. Yeah, I think it's a Wigan win for me, this is.
Do you think that Leigh game would have taken
a bit out of them?
Taken a bit out of Wigan, yeah.
Yeah, I do, because it were a high intensity, literally full 80-minute game, wasn't it? Giants, on the other hand, against Castleford, they just went through the motions, did Giants. They played okay. I think Castleford played quite poor. They didn't have to do too much. I think I think Wigan probably going to be the tide of the two sides going into it. Not that I think that's going to make any difference.
Okay, we're both saying a Wigan win then, agreeing in all 3 games so far. Moving on to the Saturday, and we've got Leigh Leopards taking on Hull KR. Leigh currently 4th, Hull KR obviously top of the shop. Leigh 4 from the last 6, Hull KR 5 from the last 6, kicks off at 3 o'clock on Sky Sports Plus.
Do we think we'd have been saying that Leigh were going in to this game beating Wigan, and Hull KR were going to be going into this game having lost to Leeds?
No, I mean, you look at like the law of averages and all that, you'd be like a brave person to suggest that's what would have happened. But here we are.
Yeah.
And it's at the Leigh Sports Village as well. That's going to be rocking as they welcome Hull KR.
Yeah, just mentioning the Leigh fans at the weekend, the Leopards then was absolutely bouncing, wasn't it? And especially in that second half, it was like Leigh played really well. First half, they stuck with Wigan. And I think that's all the Leigh fans they wanted. They just wanted him to compete with Wigan, didn't they? And it was like, in that second half, it was like all of a sudden, they smelt blood. It was like, actually, we can win this game. And there'd be times where Wigan would be in their own 20, trying to get that ball out of their own 20. The fans just got behind them. The noise levels went up however many decibels. And the Leigh defence just made them shoot off the line even quicker. And they were just belting Wigan. And they were the 18th man, weren't they, the Leopards fans at the weekend? I thought you could argue that maybe was the difference between the two sides.
Do you know what I found myself singing like throughout the weekend?
What?
The Tessin You song. Do you know it? Watching Tessin You.
Oh,
putting on a show. That chant.
Yeah,
like, it's a mega catchy chant, and it just keeps going and going and going. And I found myself like singing it. I'm like, "The fuck are you doing?" You know.
He had a good game, though, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a outstanding game, and brilliant chant. So that's that. Right. What we're saying then, Cal?
Well, one thing I would say with Edwin Pape, when he bloody plays well, the Leopards play well, don't they? And he had another quality game at the weekend. Hull KR, right, where do we start with Hull KR?
Well, you've got to start with notable absences, haven't you? So first one being Mikey Lewis.
Yeah, Mikey Lewis head injury assessment at the weekend when he went off the pitch. Some people are arguing that was the difference when he went off the pitch. I don't quite buy that. I think it just was what it was. But yeah, he's a big loss for Hull KR. He's not playing this weekend because I think he's failed his head injury assessment last week. So yeah, that's bit of good news for the Leopards, I think. Hull KR, yes, they lost at the weekend. Was there anything in the game? Absolutely nothing in that game. There were two forward passes. If they'd have gone the other way and Hull KR had scored before half time, they'd have put Leeds to bed. So, Hull KR, the dangerous side.
No, they are dangerous, but also I saw someone comment that, we found a blueprint to beat Hull KR now, so we need to follow that blueprint. And Leigh must be going in here thinking, well, they're not invincible. You know what I mean? And, if Leeds can beat them, we can beat them, having beat Wigan as well. I mean, that would be a fairy tale ending to round 18, wouldn't it? If Leigh can beat Hull KR as well.
Yeah, I mean, if that happens this week, then we just rip up the form book completely, don't we? And yeah, how exciting is that going to make the rest of Super League if Leigh managed to nick a win against Hull KR?
Well, I mean, it definitely throws a cat amongst the pigeons.
It's at Leigh, isn't it? This is the big thing with this game is it's at Leigh, and we saw that what that crowd was like against Wigan. Go on, I'm going to let you pick.
I'm going to go. I'm torn.
Oof.
I'm gonna go Hull KR win. I'm gonna go Hull KR win. I think they bounce back. I think they reevaluate. They shuffle. With Mikey Lewis being out, they shuffle. They've got plenty of skill. And they just need a bit of a reshuffle, refocus, and then they really take the game to Leigh. And I think it's going to be a Hull KR win. But Leigh are not going to be easy opponents.
Just for it, I'm going for a Leigh win.
Right, here we go. It's on.
At Leigh, if the fans can make that noise that they made against Wigan, at Leigh, Mikey Lewis out, there's a couple of factors there. I don't know why I'm saying that. I think, no, I'll stick with it. Leigh win.
But it'd be interesting. So Leigh didn't sell their full quarter of away fan tickets to Wigan fans, did they?
Oh, right, I didn't know this.
Right, this is, whether it's a rumour, someone fill me in.
This sounds very Derek, this does.
This is very Derek. Right, so they didn't, by the way, in that game against Wigan, did you see Terry running around with his camera?
Yeah, I keep spotting him all the time now.
So hello, Terry, there, the media guy at Leigh. Anyway, so yeah, they didn't, and I'm going to be interested to see whether they pull a similar stunt or whether this is actually the truth with Hull KR, because the Hull KR fans are. Jesus, did you see did you hear?
Yeah.
The chants aiming at the referee? You know what I mean? They
Yeah,
were like ripping into the referee.
Yeah.
So
It was
they're pretty hostile.
It was quite bad, that, actually.
Yeah, no, it was.
I did, yeah.
So if they can limit the number of fans that come, knowing that they're going to get a good turnout of home fans, you know, they don't necessarily need to sell the tickets to get a full
maybe
stadium.
they just sell the tickets to Hull KR fans, but you have to buy them in person from the Leopards Den.
Yeah, maybe you've got to travel an hour and 20 or whatever just to get your freaking ticket. Right, okay, so we're both decided on that. Let's move on to the next game then, Carl, if you're happy with that. So Catalan Dragons at home taking on Warrington Wolves. Catalan sitting in 9th place, 1 from the last 6. Wire sitting in 8th place, 3 from the last 6. Kicks off at 6 o'clock on Sky Sports Plus. For me, this is 2 teams spiralling down, taking on each other.
Yeah, we've been just shouting about how great some of the Super League games have been this week. Do you know what I think about this game is like, we're just going to get served up mediocre here.
Well, this is what I think this is a really intriguing match, and it's the intriguing is almost like who can be the worst team. It's not like who can be the best team. It's like who can be less crap, you know, because and both teams, we never want to just sort of slag teams off and slag players off. Neither of these teams have fulfilled their potential this year. Yeah, which I think is fair to say. Therefore, the team that can be the less crap, it can win this game, you know. So that's and I'm just like, okay, well, which team in like a rubbernecking car crash moment, like which team can be less crap?
The only game I didn't see last week was the Wire v Salford game because it was on at the same time as the Wigan Leigh game, and so I wasn't quite sure. I was seeing the score updates coming through. I was thinking, what on earth's going on at Salford? So I looked at the team to see what sort of side that Wire put out against Salford. I looked at it, it was a star-studded side. I know Wire have got some injuries this year, but if you looked at that 1 to 17, it was a quality play. It was quality throughout the team, and there's no way that Warrington should have conceded the points that they did against Salford and put in that sort of performance. To counteract that, I also saw that the comments that the Wire fans were making after that game, and they were really not happy with the performances that they're putting in. And we've got to question Sam Burgess now at this point. Why isn't he getting the best out of that side? Why aren't they up for these games? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, there's some unrest somewhere in there.
There's something not right. Like you're almost like you can imagine Sam going, right, I'm going to put my boots on myself here. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Why they can't put strong performances together. I don't know what to say about them. They are really underperforming at Warrington.
Yeah, it's like almost like a plane's autopilot. You know, when you set the autopilot, no matter if you get blown off course or whatever, you end up on the destination setting the autopilot. And that's like your identity. And Warrington have got this identity now where they're like a lower level team, you know, like lower league. Not lower league, that's the wrong phrase, but they're toward the bottom end of the table team, despite being star-studded, you know, full of some international players, you know, that and they're just not performing. And whether that's just their identity at the minute and it's just careering out of control, I don't really know. There's definite unrest. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know whether they're doing like internal investigations as to what is actually happening. I don't know if they're truly happy with their performances and they just know that if they just tighten a few things up, they'll nail it and get it right. Or whether they've written the season off. I mean, you know, you've got to be asking yourself.
It's got to be a mindset thing. Yeah. It has to be a mindset thing because if you look at Warrington's Challenge Cup final performance against OKR, they played really well. And it was the same team, pretty much. There's a couple of changes. Pretty much the same team as what they're putting out onto the field at the minute. Why can they perform like that in a Challenge Cup final and then they play Salford, a team that you would expect to put 30 or 40 points on, like most teams are doing this year, and actually struggling to get a win? It's got to be a mindset thing.
Well, it is a mindset. And you've got to ask, like, is it hard to get yourself up for a game against a team like Salford, the situation they're in right now, and therefore did they go in, whether it's not necessarily complacent, I don't want to insult them by saying they were complacent, but just not aroused enough, to put in a spirited performance. Almost, I suppose complacency is the way to describe it. Thinking, we're going to pick up a win, we can just go through the motions. Well, Salford were like, nah, you're going to have to earn it.
Yeah.
And they got a little sniff of blood, like you mentioned before with Leigh. And they were like, right, kick on, maybe we can turn these over. And then Warrington then had to really step up to stop that from happening. So it's a weird situation.
Yeah, the good news for them is they're playing Catalan this week, and they were absolutely dreadful at the weekend. Were they dreadful, or were Wakefield just on fire? I don't know. They were pretty poor with Catalan, weren't they? Again, the defence is terrible. Real bad defence. Just get the numbers wrong. They're missing one-on-one tackles. Just a real lack of intensity from Catalan, I think, at the minute.
Yeah, and this takes me back to my point at the start.
This is why I find it intriguing.
Yeah, it's intriguing because it's like, who is the less crap? I don't mean crap. Who? Both teams are spiraling.
Said it now.
Yeah, both teams are spiraling, and which one is going to spiral least? And it is intriguing. That said, and then the other thing as well is, let's say, I have to look at the table, but is winning this game going to have that much of a difference in their league position? At the minute, no.
No, it's not.
So there's not even a lot to fight for.
I would almost say now that these two sides are
locked in.
They're locked in, yeah. I don't think either side are making the playoffs. Certainly when I look at how the teams above them are playing, I think these two are mid-table to bottom half at table sides, and don't think they'll move. And
that's my point. It's like, so then is it a case of, right, we lick our wounds, we say, we put 2025 to bed and we'll start looking at 2026. I remember having a similar conversation with you about Hull FC about this time last year as well. And I'm just wondering, like, if, what are these teams playing to save face, get through the season without too much of a shitter, and kick on for next year?
Well, I think you look at Catalan, I think you'll say there'll be a big shift of players next year at Catalan.
There were a massive shift this year. They brought in some mega signings. Remember, we were really excited about Catalan this year. It's just not happened. It's not happened.
Right, go on then. We need to call it.
This is what I'm saying. It's intriguing, isn't it? It's like, you can't call it.
It's at Catalan, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll go Dragons.
Right, I'm going to go Wire.
Right.
Just for shits and giggles, to make it interesting. I think Wire will pull a win away from home, just because of the depth of their squad. They should win this. They should win it. Come on.
They should. Well, I don't know. Let's move on.
You're saying Catalan, I'm saying Wire.
I'm going Catalan. I've got nothing to base that on, but I'm just going Catalan.
Stick your predictions below. What do you think? And your comments as well. Do you agree, disagree? All of which is fine. Moving on to the Sunday then, we have got Salford taking on Castleford. This is kicking off at 3 o'clock on Sky Sports Plus. Salford, as we know, sitting in 12th place, 0 from the last 6. How many times have I said that this year? And then Castleford currently sitting 10th with just 1 win from the last 6 games.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
How are you calling
when you come to call Salford next week, you'll be able to say Salford won from 6.
You reckon?
I think Salford might take this one.
Well,
look, Castleford were pretty poor on Thursday night against Huddersfield. They didn't really offer much, which was surprising because I thought that game was for the Tigers. I was like, this is a game that the Tigers have got to focus on. Team around them in the table, they've got to put their best foot forward, and they didn't. They really didn't. Danny Maguire was less than happy with his size performance at the end of the game. He was almost questioning whether his players are good enough to be playing Super League. I think if you kind of listen to what he was saying.
Well, he just gave him like a bit of a kick up the arse, didn't they? I mean, interestingly,
but it's not the first time he's done that.
Yeah,
he's calling his players out.
Well, there's a couple of things that's interesting for me. I think you're right. I don't think this is a gimme for Castleford. But what I will say is they played on Thursday. They're now playing on Sunday. So that is an extra couple of days to get their ducks in a row, to refresh, recover, and to kick on ready for Sunday. Am I right in thinking that Salford have had more Sunday games than any other team?
They always play on a Sunday,
They
don't
seem to.
they?
I'm
do.
sure people will put me right.
They always seem to be playing on a Sunday. Certainly for the last 5 weeks, every time I can remember looking at Salford, they've been playing on a Sunday.
So why is that? Because scheduling came out before their financial worries were public. So, what is going on there? Is there a stadium thing going on or what?
Maybe stadium's only available on a Sunday. But even when they're away, they seem to be playing on a Sunday. I don't know. But yeah, they do seem to have a lot of Sunday games.
Yeah, so I think that's going in Castleford's favour in that they've had an extra couple of days just to kind of give their head a wobble for Danny Maguire to get amongst them and to give these players a bit of a shake-up, really, and get them ready for this game.
What do you think it's like being a head coach? Like, there's two that spring to mind, like Danny Maguire and like Sam Burgess, both players who played at the top of their game. They had the highest standards possible in the sides that they were playing for. Like Danny Maguire, when he was in that Kevin Sinfield Leeds side, they had the highest standards imaginable. Burgess, we all know the standard he set himself as a player. They must find it frustrating coming into a head coaching role. Almost like, it's almost like a case of, I could have done better myself when I was your age. It must be frustrating.
No, it must be frustrating. However, they're almost two separate skills, isn't it? It's like, just because you're a top player doesn't mean you're going to be a top coach.
No, true.
Because, look at Matty Peet, for example. Matty Peet never played at the highest levels of the game.
No.
However, his coaching, his man management, the way that he puts teams together, his tactics, his ability to inspire a team, and to create cohesion within a team, second to none. So they don't always, the different things, aren't they? Different skills. We both know amazing players that have got the man management skills of a freaking soggy Kit Kat. You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't always translate. And there's also, you go from being top of your game, like Danny Maguire retiring. All right, he went and had a couple of, twilight seasons at Hull KR, but then he sort of back to the bottom in the coaching apprenticeship, learning his trade. And he's still learning his trade now. He's new to coaching in reality. There's not many step into, and be exceptional from the start.
No, but whenever you're a top player, you play under top coaches, don't you? So we spoke to Danny Maguire at the start of the season. I asked him, didn't I, which coach he mimics himself on, out of all the coaches, and he kind of just, he said to me he had his own style, didn't he? He says, I kind of feel like I've taken a bit from everyone that's coached me. I'd love to spend a week in camp with one of these people, like a week in camp with Danny Maguire, and just see his coaching style and actually see what goes on amongst the players. Because I reckon he's probably a decent coach. Maybe he hasn't got the players in the squad that he needs.
Well, he's got to be a decent coach to be in Super League. I don't think there's a poor coach in Super League. I don't think there's a poor coach in the Championship. In reality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, there's definitely a learning process to go. And it's not the core rugby skills or game management. It's the man management. It's the managing people's personalities and managing a team dynamic. And not everybody have got the emotional awareness or the instant emotional awareness, if you like, in order to do that. Some people do it incredibly well. They're just people.
People.
You know what I mean? They're just they're just very good at developing teams. So
I'm a people.
Oh yeah, you reckon? Anyway, you asked me what I think it was like. Freaking stressful. Oh yeah. Jesus Christ, because you often can't predict what people are going to do. You know what I mean? And you've got. We see the main players on the pitch week in, week out, but obviously the squads are. There's squad number 35, isn't there? Squad number 36, 37 in some 40. I think there's 40.
50 odd if you're at Salford.
Yeah, so that there's the squad's huge, and you're managing all these things and more. Right. Which I think there's more and more, like Ian Blease at Leeds. I think there's going to be more and more director of rugby, positions starting.
Yeah.
Because you're just managing so much as a head coach, aren't you? Recruitment for one, you know.
Well, they brought in Chris Chester, haven't they?
Yeah.
At Cass, so I think he's already recruiting players for next season. Question then.
Yeah.
What job would you want to do least? Head coach or referee?
Least by a long way, referee.
Right.
I just won't want to do it. I don't back my own. My eyes are gone. My ears are gone. I won't back my own decisions.
Right, never.
I don't understand the rules enough.
Never. Never.
Referee's not for me.
Never say anything bad about a referee ever again.
Why?
Because you can't mix it yourself. Then.
Well, I can't fucking play top level rugby league and I comment on people's performances every week as well. So you know. But I mean,
shit, podcasting as well.
Well, yeah, and video and everything else I've ever done.
Who are you
in my
picking,
life.
Salford or Castleford?
I'm going Castleford, and I'd expect Castleford to keep Salford, to beat Salford. I don't think they'll keep them nil and like 0 score, like within 20, maybe even 30 points. That's where I want them to be.
Right, put this in your book.
Yeah.
Salford are going to win this week. First win coming this week. Salford, write down. Write down.
You want me to genuinely? Oh, my pen's broke. Why am I writing it down? Like, my memory's not that bad. I will remember that you backed freaking
Salford,
right? So, yeah. Well, give me some context. Why are you thinking that? No answer.
No. I thought Cass were dreadful at weekend. I really they were just flat. They made so many they made errors they just shouldn't have been making. Now, if they sort that out, they'll probably go on to win. Salford, they've had some blowout scores, but whenever they get a sniff, they're not that far off.
Well, they've got to earmark this game as a could win.
Yeah, there's a little bit of chance in my arm here, and I won't bet my mortgage on it. Put it that way, but. I think they'll pick up a win at some point this year. I think it's going to be this week.
Oof.
Cut the video.
Now, that is what I will say there is I would not want to be Danny Maguire if they lose against Salford this week. Oh, right, Carl. Hopefully it's going to be another belting round 18. Any final afterburners?
Check out our set 6, which is live on the show. Loads of stuff on there, including the most tin pot mascot in rugby league.